Hello friends, this video on synthetic fibers and plastics part 9 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we have discussed about synthetic fibers. Let us quickly talk about plastics. So where do we see plastics? Now, plastics are really associated with us on everyday basis. So you look around yourself and you'll be able to see a lot of things which are made up of plastics. Whether you talk about your bottles, you talk about the storage jars in your kitchen, or you talk about a bucket, you talk about a table, talk about a chair, you think of a comb, the plastic bags, the polythene wrappers, dustbins, pens. There are so many things actually which are made up of plastics. So plastics play a very important role in our day-to-day life. So we are going to talk about some of the characteristics of plastics and their pros and cons. Now, some of the important properties of plastics are, and these properties make plastics so popular to be used in all the everyday items. So you look at anything and you'll see most of the things are made up of plastics, because plastics are very easily moldable to different shapes. Now they are quite flexible. So if you look at your multimeter in your lab, so the outer part or the outer covering is made up of nothing but plastics. You look at the wires, so the outer layering or the outer covering of the wires, they are also made up of some type of plastics. You look at your wiring, the sockets and all. So what is this made up of? They are also made up of some type of plastics. So plastics can actually take shape of any desired shape. It is reusable. So if you see a plastic which has been used in one object, the same plastic can again be melted and it can be given a different shape to be used for something else, because the plastic do not get rusted or the plastics do not get corroded like metals. So therefore plastics are durable and they can be reused in some different form. They are lightweight, not very heavy. Poor conductors of electricity. They do not allow electricity to pass through them. That is why you see all the coverings of the electric wires, they are all made up of plastics, so that even when we can touch them safely and there are no risks of getting electric shock. Similarly, if you see, for the electrical outlets, the open outlets are made safe for children by putting the electrical safety caps, and these electrical safety caps, they are also made up of plastics. Because plastics being poor conductor, they will not allow electricity to pass through them and there will be very less risk of getting electric shock. Some are heat resistant. Now some plastics even do not allow heat to affect them. They do not get deformed in presence of heat. Now this is not true for all plastics. It is true only for some plastics. So some examples of plastics for which this is true is bakelite. So bakelite is one such plastic which is heat resistant. Bakelite, melamine. So the melamine is also heat resistant. You would have seen the dinner sets and the crockery sets made up of melamine. So even if you heat a melamine vessel, they do not get melted or they do not get deformed. In fact, that is why for a lot of utensils which are used for cooking purpose, for example, the fry pans and all, there also you will see their handles are made up of plastics, because so that we can, even when the fry pan is put on the oven and the oven is burning, the handle should not be hot, so that we can hold the handle comfortably. So that is why the handle is often made up of the heat resistant type of plastics like bakelite or melamine. So these properties of plastics make it very popular even inside the kitchen for making various utensils, plates, spoons, forks, then the crockery items, fry pans, handles. So everywhere we see plastics. Another very important property is that they do not react with water or air. So plastics are very non-reactive. Now they do not have a tendency of reacting with other chemical substances to form some new product. So that tendency is not there, and that is why plastic containers are considered to be very safe for storing food products, because when you want to store food product, you do not want the chemical composition of the food to get changed. Correct? So we want the vessel to be made up of such a kind of a material which do not react easily with other chemicals. So that is true for plastic, and that is why it is often used for storage. Durable. they last for a longer time, and one reason here is that no rusting happens in case of plastics, no corrosion happens in case of plastics. So that is also a very big advantage, because if you think of anything where rusting happens, for example iron or copper vessel, and if you leave them outside for a long time, so they are continuously being exposed to air. Now whenever there is little bit of moisture in the air, they tend to get rust over their surface, but any risk like that is not there for plastics. They can form wires and sheets, so they are so flexible that they can not only take different shapes, they can even form thin wires or thin sheets. So because of so many properties and so much of flexibility, plastics are very popular for making items in our day-to-day life. They can have variety of colors, so even they are available in a lot of colors. So let us now see the different types of plastics. So in plastics also we have many types of plastics with different properties. So broadly there are two types of plastics. One is thermoplastics. So what are thermoplastics? The word thermo means heat. So these type of plastics, they get deformed on heating. So when you heat them, they either change their shape, they start melting. So some change or some deformation happens in them. So they also tend to bend easily. So that's what, change in shape in any form. So some examples of thermoplastics, most common examples of thermoplastics are polythene, which we often use as in polythene bags, and another example is PVC, that is polyvinyl chloride. And where do we use them? So these polyvinyl chlorides, they are often used in these kind of plastic tubes like structures. So they are used for making pipes or pipe fittings. So they come in rigid form as well as flexible. So they are rigid, because of which they are used in making pipes and all, but at the same time they are quite flexible, right? So when you talk about this polythene bags, now this is something which is very commonly used by all of us. So what does polythene consist of? So polythene is nothing but poly plus ethene. That means multiple units of ethene. So ethene is the monomer here, and many ethene together form polythene. So you see so many different objects made of thermoplastics like comb, pens, especially the toys of children, they are all made up of thermoplastic. So if you actually try to heat them, they will show some sort of deformation. However, there is another set of plastics called thermosetting plastics. So these plastics, they do not get deformed with heat, and that is why more important things, for example, the electrical appliances covering or the utensils, so whichever is exposed to more heat or electricity, they are all made up of thermosetting plastics. So they once molded, they do not deform on heating. So once the molding is done, when that plastic is being formed, so once it is formed, once it has taken a particular shape, after that it doesn't bend or it doesn't change its shape on being heated. So it is heat as well as fire resistant. So therefore, if you use these kind of plastics for making cooking utensils, so you can easily cook in them, because if you heat those utensils, nothing will happen to the utensil. But if you use an utensil made up of thermoplastic, what will happen? As soon as you put it on the stove, as soon as you heat it, the plastic utensil itself will start deforming, it will itself start melting. So that would become a problem. So some examples of thermosetting plastics are bakelite, melamine. So these are examples of thermosetting plastics. So if you look at melamine, it is an organic base which contains a lot of nitrogen. So nitrogen content is very high in melamine. These days you would have seen the melamine dinner sets where you have melamine plates, spoons, cups, saucers, everything. So you can actually heat those vessels directly because they are heat resistant. Again, bakelite, they are heat resistant, at the same time they are poor conductor of electricity. So that is why they are often used in the electrical appliances. So that, because whenever you are dealing with electrical appliances, there are chances of electric shock. So you want something which is poor conductor of electricity. So bakelite is being used in radio casings or telephone casings, and this bakelite was developed for the first time by a Belgian chemist called Bekeland, and that is why the name bakelite was given to it. So bakelite is also used for making kitchenware, because in kitchenware also, if it is poor conductor of electricity, that is also good. So if you look at these types of plastics, they are very durable plastic, and in fact, when you talk about melamine, as I said, it has very high content of nitrogen. So you might say that, okay, so if melamine contains so much of nitrogen, and we know that nitrogen is a macronutrient for plants need nitrogen for their growth. So why can't we extract nitrogen from melamine and use it as fertilizer? Well, that is not very economical, because the process by which nitrogen is released from melamine, that is an extremely slow process. So it is not really economical to use melamine as a source of nitrogen to be used as fertilizer. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again.